From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Hello and welcome to Around Foxborough, the show where we talk about the people, places, and things that make Foxborough the gem of Norfolk County. My name is Mark Rivard, and my guest today is Kerry Snyder. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues doing the recording of this, so we're going to bring the rest of the interview to you in progress. Please enjoy.
That falls to the ground. And, when rain falls to the ground, it should be a good thing, right? And when we don't have any development, it is a good thing. It soaks into the ground. It's feeding the vegetation, the grass, the trees. It's getting all the impurities are getting filtered through the soil before it reaches our groundwater, which is actually where about half the people who live in the Neponset watershed get their drinking water from. And eventually it makes its way to the Neponset or its tributaries. But when we start to develop, and you've got the, Route 1 corridor there, and we start to build our homes and developments, we're putting hard surfaces down over the soil. And we're blocking the rain from soaking into the soil the way it wants to. And instead, it's just running off, and it heats up and it speeds up, and it can really cause some damage. And now it's a nuisance, right? We need to get it away from our homes and our businesses. So what we've developed is a series of pipes under the ground. And those are designed to move the stormwater from our, where we live and work, to the nearest stream. I'm sure you've seen the storm drains on the street right by the curb. It's a grate, and basically the stormwater is the streets and sidewalks are designed to sort of push the stormwater into those grates. The problem is it's picking up everything along the way. So it might be picking up leaves. It's going to be picking up all those cigarette butts. It's going to be picking up pet waste that people haven't properly disposed of, fertilizer that gets, left on the sidewalk, oil and gas that leaks out onto the streets. And there's no treatment between when it hits that grate and when it enters the nearby stream. So stormwater, it can be a real problem when, there are pollutants that it picks up and it brings it right into the nearest water body. You've seen that in like Crack Rock Pond, or the Neponset Reservoir, where particularly in the warmer months, you get these algae blooms. And those algae blooms are fed by the fertilizer, which has phosphorus in it, by the leaves and grass clippings that get washed in there. And as they break down, they reduce the oxygen levels in the water. Again, you get those blooms, and it really affects wildlife and people. You can't use a water body. You can't swim in or boat in a water body that's that polluted.
And people don't really understand. They don't see that. Where does the water go? Well, now we know, and it brings a lot of things with it. I've seen the water go crazy when you had a massive storm and it's flying, it's flowing down the sidewalk or down the side of the road, and it's one of those storm drains, and it brings all the garbage with it, which is not good.
It really does. And oftentimes people think there must be some sort of treatment, right? In the catch basins below the grate, sometimes the solids will fall to the bottom and not flow into the pipes, but there really isn't any treatment. So in newer developments, which I can get into, we're trying to make sure that treatments are installed to catch all of that debris, all of that pollution before the water enters the storm drain.
And there's also effects for myself. I always think of myself first, of course, but we all tend to do that. If you have a septic system or, the sewer, all that water goes into the ground, and it can really, doesn't that mess it up too? I mean, the whole ecosystem is sort of out of whack when you get a lot of water hitting it once.
Yeah. I mean, a septic system is designed to take the wastewater and make sure it gets treated before it enters the groundwater. But you're right. When there's a lot of water flowing into it, it might not have time to sort of settle and and sit there to be treated. And if people don't maintain their septic systems, then you're getting a lot of those pollutants coming out, whether it's bacteria or I think nitrogen can come out, and it can be a real problem.
So in other words, people take care of your septic systems, make sure they're clean regularly, and put the additives in there, pump them out, etc.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we can do. Okay.
Yes,
What
definitely.
What else can we do, Kerry?
So one of the other issues with stormwater is flooding, right? So in the Northeast, we were developed much earlier than some other parts of the United States, and all of those storm drains are really old, and they weren't sized for the types of storms that we're seeing. Like I said, we're seeing these heavier rainstorms, and so they get overwhelmed completely. And we get some severe flooding. Like I don't know if you saw in June of 2020, right as the pandemic was starting, Norwood got this enormous rainstorm. It only lasted a couple of minutes, but it was several inches that came down just within a matter of minutes, and it completely flooded out Norwood Hospital. Norwood Hospital remains closed today. So that's an emergency room that got closed down right as the pandemic was starting. And they need to completely raise it and rebuild it. So all those people who go to Norwood Hospital now have to go at least 6 miles away to the nearest hospital. And this can happen elsewhere too. We could have, major infrastructure breakdown in these floods. So that's just another reason why we want to prioritize this and make sure that we're doing something about it. And small changes around your house are great. Everybody's got the downspouts, and you want to make sure that they're not facing any hard surface. So face it away from your driveway. Make it flow into your landscaping. Build a rain garden. Use a rain barrel and use that water to water your garden and your plantings. The image that you're seeing now is a larger rain garden, and this is something that cities and towns are starting to do. They're looking at public properties to retrofit. So basically, you find a school. This is at a school with a large parking lot. So big area of hard surface, impervious surface, causing, stormwater runoff. And they're going in and they're building these big rain gardens, which is a form of green infrastructure, which is a fancy word for something that's highly engineered, but it's designed to mimic the natural process. So as I said, when we don't have development, the rain soaks into the ground and does what it's supposed to do. And so these rain gardens are designed to sort of be located at the point where all the water wants to go once it hits the parking lot, and holds it there so that it's cooling down, so it's not heating up any of our cold water fisheries. It filters it out. So a lot of those pollutants are filtered out, and then it flows into the storm drain system, or it infiltrates right into the groundwater and replenishes our groundwater, so that we have it for our wells and our drinking water. So we can do that on a smaller scale at our homes, or we can do it on a larger scale with our cities and towns. And we do a lot of work with all of our towns to find grant money to do that, because these are expensive. And there are a lot of places that we need to put it in.
A lot of companies are actually looking for more green ways for their buildings. There are architectural firms. My full-time job is working for an architectural firm.
Okay.
Even though I don't do the actual architecture, I do the human resources side, but still, lead kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it is lead, but they find ways in homes, well, not homes, but usually office buildings, to save the rainwater. They can reuse the rainwater, drain it, clean it, use it. They use, lighting, solar, things like that. I mean, it is expensive. The companies spend money to have these put in, but down the road, maybe, homeowners, that's something that we're all going to have to look at to save resources, and also to do what we need to do to make sure, our water supply is correct and healthy, and everything's draining correctly. And I can go on and on, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And these small changes that individuals can make are great. And if we can aggregate that, to make bigger change, that's what we really need to do. And some of the other things that people can do are perhaps not for the flooding itself, but to just make sure those pollutants aren't being swept away. So if you've got a dog, pick up after them. We just did we do a cleanup twice a year at various points along the river and tributaries. And I can't tell you how often we'll go and we'll find a ton of dog poop bags. So people have done the right thing and they've picked up after their pet, but then they just left them there. So it's still a problem. Or we had an issue in Canton several years ago, which was affectionately dubbed Poopgate, where clearly somebody in the neighborhood walked their dog or dogs regularly, and they did the right thing. They picked up after their dog, and then they threw the bag into the storm drain.
Oh.
And eventually it got so clogged that it was causing flooding in the neighborhood. And it took those guys 2 days and thousands of dollars to clean those bags out. Yeah, it was pretty gross.
You go out to eat and you take your leftovers home with you. Well, when you take your dog out, take his leftovers or her leftovers home too, and dispose of it properly. I see that a lot on the sidewalks, and it's not a good thing.
It's not.
No.
And when you go to the trouble to pick it up, dispose of it properly. It goes in a wastebasket. What's another thing? If you have an irrigation in your lawn, make sure those sprinklers are, facing the lawn. A lot of times they get misaligned and they start watering your sidewalk or your driveway. And that water is just being wasted and it's running off and into the storm drain. So sorry about that.
Hey, who's doing his business?
Seriously. It's the witching hour. They like to play right around now. And fertilizing. When you're taking care of your lawn, everybody wants a green lawn. We'd love to get a campaign going where, people accept brown lawns. But honestly, if you use fertilizer, just make sure that it's got slow release nitrogen and no phosphorus. Massachusetts statute actually prohibits using phosphorus on your lawn unless a soil test requires it. But that phosphorus is really what's driving those algae blooms and some other really nasty growth in our surface water bodies. So we don't want to see that. So keep it on the lawn, sweep it up if it gets on your driveway, that sort of thing.
How about watering? Because we're already in a drought. Very soon here in Foxborough, we will see the big signs saying, hey, no watering on these days, et cetera, et cetera. We have a water ban. But if you're going to water when it is your day to water, you want to water at night, not when the sun is blaring down, because it really doesn't help. It's just wasting water for the most part, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We lose so much water to evaporation, watering on windy days, also not great. And we see a lot of people watering on rainy days. So get a rain sensor because you're not helping the lawn by watering in addition to the rain. So get it. Those rain sensors really do work. And if it's raining or it's just rained, you're save on your water bill. And don't.
Those are the same people that wash their car when it's raining too.
Yeah.
Or cause the rain because they washed their car the day before. Yeah, I know.
Well, and that's another thing, if you're washing your car, make sure that soapy water isn't then going into the storm drain. The great thing actually about commercial car washes, I used to think it was better to wash my car at my house, but the commercial car washes recycle their water and they capture it. So it's not going into the storm drain system. So, but if you can't go to a commercial car wash, just divert that water onto your lawn and let it soak in there.
Nice.
Yeah. So those are a bunch of things that we can do. The other thing I always tell people is, go to town meeting, pay attention to what's going on, and really prioritize funding for your DPW. It's not a sexy line item, but those are the guys who are maintaining the storm drain system, and it often doesn't get the priority that it needs. So pay attention. Make sure that there is funding for climate resilience and stormwater management. And take a look at those zoning laws, and any policy changes that will increase resistance and increase open space and green space, so that water can really be taken care of, is great. Foxborough, I love working with Foxborough. You have a great crew of municipal employees, and we have a great partnership through the Neponset Stormwater Partnership, and Foxborough is one of our most active members. We do have almost all of our cities and towns involved in that partnership, and Foxborough is really taking some steps towards making the community more climate resilient. Again, I'm not sure if your viewers know, but these changes that I'm talking about, these broader scale changes, like the rain gardens and other green infrastructure, like infiltration basins. So we can create engineered basins or boxes under the ground that will take stormwater and infiltrate it into the ground instead of just shoving it off to the nearest stream. And these are designed to mimic what nature does. But as I said, they're really expensive. And so what the state has done is the state has come up with a municipal vulnerability preparedness program. And through this program, they actually give grants, so not loans, but grants to cities and towns to help them prepare. So Foxborough, within the last year and a half, got their first grant, and they went through a planning process, and some of your viewers might even have participated in that. And basically what the planning process is so now all of our towns have been able to go through all of their zoning codes and looked at all of their infrastructure and development, and identified areas of vulnerability. So where is the flooding going to happen? Where are the heat island effects going to happen? When we get these high heat days, because again, we're talking about global warming. And they've been able to prioritize sort of projects that will help them be more resilient and protect residents and protect businesses, because nobody wants to see a Norwood hospital happen in their town. You don't want those jobs to go away. So that the state program, this MVP, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, provides a second set of grants that allow cities and towns to actually act on some of the priorities they identified in the first instance. And Foxborough actually got awarded one of these grants the first year after they did their planning. And this is the first of many, I'm sure. And so right now they are looking at areas of flooding, where, they're trying to figure out where residents are seeing flooding during these more intense rainstorms, because you're seeing it more in different places. It's not the same places you saw 20 years ago. So they're trying to identify those, and they're trying to come up with locations to install some of this green infrastructure. Where can we put a beautiful rain garden on public property to alleviate some flooding in a neighborhood? Where can we put those infiltration trenches underground to alleviate that flooding and make sure that you're not backing up traffic and people aren't getting water in their basements? And that you're reducing that public safety risk. If you've got flooding, one of the areas they're looking at is under on Cohasset Street, under the train tracks. That sounds like it floods out all the time. And so when it does, public safety, can't get through there. And so they've got to find a detour. And so what if you have an emergency near there? So really identifying these places and figuring out where we can install fixes is really important. And Foxborough is the leader there, and has really taken the bull by the horns and is looking at this.
Yeah, and as I know we were talking a little bit before we went on the air, but we were talking about flood zones and how FEMA's always redrawing the maps, because ever since Katrina, it's become a bigger thing. Now they're aware, and of course, all the insurance agencies are saying, "Wait a minute, we can't pay out those kind of. You got to do something." So by figuring out where these flood zones really are and fixing them, we may be able to help a little bit and stop that from happening right here in Foxborough. What happened in Norwood? What happened actually in Warwick, Rhode Island, with Warwick Mall? I remember when that happened a couple of years ago. That got flooded out because of the rains.
Yeah, it's really, we're seeing storms like we've never seen them before. And so you can't make your plans based on the FEMA maps, because the feds aren't, able to update those maps very often. So we're really hoping that we can do some work here locally, and sort of take a look at the region, for example, and figure out, where the flooding is going to happen all over, and figure out some of these larger scale interventions. Maybe towns can work together. Because these things are so expensive and so time consuming, maybe they can work together and sort of, get some efficiency of scale and do some bigger projects to really impact these neighborhoods and make sure that, we're not seeing the incredible flooding or the impacts of flooding. Ideally, we can't stop all the flooding, but we can make ourselves more resilient to flooding, able to bounce back. And not sustain the damage that we might have years ago.
And the damage to our water in general.
Yes.
With all the pollutants and everything. So.
Yes.
Excellent. So where can people find out more information about the MVP project?
So for the MVP project, there is Foxborough has a website, and I think we're going to put it up here because if I read it off, it's not going to make any sense.
I'm looking at it now, and it's like, well, I don't think if we read this off, nobody's going to write this down. So I know back at home base, Foxborough Cable Access, we will put it on the screen for you, and you'll be able to know where to go.
And they can also visit our website, neponset.org. And we have all of our programs on there, in addition to the climate resilience work that we're doing. And again, I apologize. My dog has decided to eat right now, even though there's no food.
Well, we can't, like you said, we can't totally stop flooding. We can't totally stop a dog from eating when the dog wants to eat.
I know.
So
she's got a mind of her own.
Exactly.
So, but yes, I do encourage everybody to visit our website, and definitely visit the Foxborough website, because even if you don't live in Foxborough, if you have experienced flooding in Foxborough, they would love your feedback on where you're seeing that. There's an interactive map on that website. You can also see some of the projects that are coming out of this feedback from the public. They've got a big project that they're looking at it's the Payson Road Athletic Complex. Mm-hmm. And it's a series of infiltration trenches underneath the all around the parking lot. We've got this huge area of impervious surface, right, where water is gathering, and it's sort of a perfect opportunity. And so these are the types of things you're going to be seeing around town, and we'd love it if we know construction is inconvenient sometimes, but it's really important that these projects get prioritized and funded. And that they have public support, because ultimately it will benefit everyone in Foxborough.
Great. 100% correct on that. Well, thank you so much, Kerry, for joining us and filling us in on all these details. And hopefully we will move forward. As you said, Foxborough is already starting on its way there. Hopefully we can just keep going, and all the neighboring towns will join in.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Kerry Snyder, the Advocacy Director for the Neponset River Watershed Association, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
And that'll do it for Around Foxborough. Have yourself a great day.